we are shortchanging them. We want them to be Kenyan. We want them to be, let's say, Kikuyu. But we are not doing...
We're not doing, we're not doing
things.
the minimums.
We're not doing the minimums.
Yeah.
We are
required.
But we want them to learn Kikuyu.
Yes.
But when we want to talk about them, we talk in Kikuyu.
And then when they attempt, we laugh at them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was brought up by the Moiko lady. What's her name? No, it was...
No, Rehema. I think Rehema is the one.
Was it Rehema?
Rehema is the one who brought
yeah.
the drive.
But he wanted these kids to be part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So quite interesting. It was quite an interesting year. Especially seeing those kids who are now Kenya was in the global news, and these kids who are born here were very interested in what was happening. Gonna be a mix of everything. There will be some politics. Of course, this was a very, very political year. There will be some sports. There will be some entertainment. There will be a lot of social issues that we're going to be talking about. It is a recap of the year 2024. This is the season finale, and this is also the time to start preparing for what you need to do when Fridays come. I know some of you are used to tuning in every Friday night, but we're going to be taking a break because we also need a break. We're going to be taking a break until sometime towards the end of January. We don't have the date exactly right now, but we will communicate that information. So we covered so many episodes. We covered, I want to say, close to 40 episodes this year. From the issue with TB Joshua when we started, we hosted Kia Simmons, who is an African American who lives in Kenya. There was the murder case in Boston, which the Kenyan who murdered the girlfriend fled to Kenya. So we'll also be talking about that. Then there was Boston Marathon. We hosted Wahome. Then there was the announcement for Ruto's visit. We also hosted an MCA for the first time. Maybe not the first time we're hosting an MCA, but we interviewed an MCA, Joe Kigara from Kiambu, gave us some insight on what MCAs do. And then this was also the year that Big Ted was replaced by Ezra Chiloba as the Consul General for LA. We will talk about that too. There was also that interesting episode with Udima Denge. We're going to talk about that. That, did not go in the direction that we expected. So we're going to have a conversation about that too. Then diaspora policy was introduced. This was also the year that a bridge collapsed in Baltimore. The Francis Scott Key Bridge. We're going to be talking about that too. There was an episode where we had conversations about relatives' entitlement, our relatives back home, how they constantly keep asking for money. And then there was the period of the finance bill. In fact, Ruto first came to the US, then we started discussing about the finance bill, and then there was a Gen Z uprising, the cabinet was recycled, and then we also had a chance to host Edwin Sifuna and Morara Kebaso. We'll also be talking about that. Now, more recently, there was the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Gachagua, Kenya's former deputy president, was impeached. Then we also hosted Sambaza all the way from Dallas. He came to the DMV and was able to grace the studio. Then we hosted Hulda Momanyi, who's now a representative, or is about to be sworn in as a representative for the state of Minnesota. And then, of course, Trump won the 2024 election. Then more recently, Adani got cancelled, and we also hosted the Gen Z parents, Baba na Mama Rehema. So these are just some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So please type up, let us know which episodes you want to tune in. I want to now take this opportunity to start introducing the rest of the panel. And I'm actually going to start with a guest host who's been a prodigal child. She's been away for a while, but she's made it for the last episode. So Ruth, karibu sana, karibu sana. I'm sure there's so many people who are waiting for you. Talk to us. Where did you disappear to?
Oh my word, prodigal child. That is so funny.
And prodigal is an understatement. I had other options, words like absentee.
Yeah.
But
let's use prodigal.
Yeah, prodigal.
Yeah.
Absentee, prodigal.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, you wanted to use absentee as...
Hi, Dad.
I know, please. Anyway, what happened this year? This year was a lot. It was a lot. Started this year with a ton of hopes and aspirations to come to the show as I was before, even more. But then there's something called work that basically took over my life this year. At some point, I was like, okay, I can't change work. It's what it is. So I'm going to change locations. So I went to Kenya on a whim. Actually, I think I bought the ticket less than 2 weeks before I flew out. It was like, I'm just done with this place. I need to move. So I went to Kenya. I was supposed to be there for a month. Extended it to...
7 months, but
no,
what do
7 months for 2 months. It was just 2 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, trust me, she was gone for like about 9 months.
I think I've been gone from the show for 9 months. That one I'll take.
You remember the song? You remember the song? I'll be gone till November. I'll be gone till November.
So she was gone for how long?
She was gone to December.
She was gone till November.
No, but you said 9 months. That's actually a very relevant number.
From the second, the second.
Nothing has happened.
Okay.
Do I look like anything has happened?
We are not judging.
No,
We are not judging.
Anyway,
We are just saying that the relevancy of the
I'm
number
judging
is.
all of you. Anyway, I'm so happy to be at the last day of the show. Let's connect on the chat. I am back. Like, I know I've not responded to so many messages. OneMicShow will kill me on that one too.
No comment.
But like,
we are going to find out who it is.
there is no one.
Hey.
Mikasi, 9 months is 9 months. There's just no other way of calculating 9 months.
See, no, achana 9 months. You're 9 months. See, no. We will find you, young man. We will find you.
Alafu unajua Pablo has been MIA also, so.
It could be a Gen Z too.
See, Pablo.
As it could be. She's saying it could be a Gen Z.
It could be a Gen Z.
Okay.
I no comment to your people, but I'm so happy to be back.
Did you bring us mangoes?
They were not ready because zimeanza kumea. Si kumea.
Kuiva.
Si kuiva. Zikishaanza kutoka kwa mti inaitwa nini?
Kuanguka.
Si kuanguka.
Anguka nayo.
Ali, you're sticking with the Gen Z thing. Go with it, Ali.
So zilikuwa zimeanza kusprout. Yeah,
alafu zitakuwa ready January.
Exactly.
Now,
by the way,
avocado.
Avocado, actually, I think those are year round. I'm not so sure. But I'll say
avocado ni kama nini madafu haina season.
Yeah. If you want maembe kwa Kenya, my dad or my parents or the farm they harvest over 7,000 mangoes a year.
What?
So,
and what do they
I
do
have a
with
connection.
them?
They sell.
Oh, okay.
What about those oranges that come from uko kwenyu?
They have them too.
The ones that make the best orange juice. Ali, you don't know anything about that.
They have them too. They do.
And those things you have to book a year and ahead. If you don't book a year and ahead, you don't get them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Na waga zinatoka kitu I think waga kajuni hivi, June, July.
Aya, sawa.
I have the plug for that.
Okay, asante sana Ruth. Twende kwa DJ Omosh Fire. DJ Omosh Fire. How's your 2024 been? You know, like, hii hapa, is there one episode that captivated you that you want us to talk about later tonight? DJ Omosh Fire, karibu sana. We thought you were actually in a plane, but you are here with us.
I bailed on the pilot.
Okay.
Yes.
Sawa.
Yes.
Any 2024 episode, one episode that really captivated you that you want us to have a conversation about?
I think I would say Morara.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll piggyback on Sifuna. But to be honest, Charisma.
Okay. Charisma, yes.
Yeah, Charisma is one that I think our audience probably fell asleep on. I would advise them to go back and watch.
Okay.
And
Charisma, the artist. For those maybe who don't know who he is.
Yes, he's just what he does, him as a person, pali alitoka, pali yuko, na pali anaenda, and his 2025 is just looking brighter.
It's looking brighter.
It's just looking brighter. I think he has the biggest gig that Kenyans have seen or are going to see in 2025.
Okay, so stay tuned. You
Yes.
will tell us more about that. So asante sana, DJ Mosh Fire. Wacha tukuje to our next guest host who's not been around for a little while too, but yuko studio leo. Karibu sana. Introduce yourself once
Thank
again to
you.
those who don't know you, and tell us, like any episode this year that captivated you that you really want us to talk about today.
Now, usiseme brother ako. Oh, sorry, he didn't come this year. Sorry.
No, I'm just happy to be here. This is all because one mic says, on Kanyagia. Yeah, I'm like, hey, give me tickets. Give me tickets to come to the show.
Yani,
Yeah, let's-
aunaga ile pass ya green room?
No.
Oh.
Bas.
One mic, I was even begging him. I was like, dude, you just put me on your WhatsApp group. And I'm like, no, unajua wewe si.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute you.
Wow. Wow. Yani, amekanyaga microphone.
I love that.
Eh? And I'm like, no, wewe unajua,
Maybe it's the thing about having two bald people with beards. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
No, alikuwa anasema Kiswahili yangu, man. Unajua, yeah, man, unajua Kiswahili yako ikuagi fiti, come there and that start, shrubbing. I was like, okay. So I just gave up. Yeah?
Ama kizungu.
No,
I
hold
love you
on.
giving them fire like they just gave me.
No. Let me.
What?
No. Fire can be. It can also be dished out.
Okay.
There's a time I don't know what we were doing. I'd gone to watch the sun play, and then I think Amelia is the one who came, and I was talking to Chris and saying, "There's daddy's over there, but why is daddy under the shade?" Because I was wearing the turkey trot, and I look like you. Now look what you did.
Yeah.
So you better check yourself, bro.
Okay.
Okay.
Kinda.
I apologize.
Wow.
But I'm happy to be here.
Okay. and any particular episode that comes to mind this year that you want us to have a conversation about?
So as we were talking earlier, I was really captivated by the episode where the Gen Z parents, Kina Gofu came. It really kind of resonated a lot with me, especially having kids who are, born here and then being caught in those two cultures, right? And not having just the identity. And I'll probably talk a little bit about it maybe later, because Abu, before my dad passed away, we had a talk. Yeah, thanks, man. We had a talk where we were talking about like how my kids are kind of just having that struggle, and then, just out of the blue, he started now telling us how far we go back, like, so. I found this super interesting. So they didn't have written history, theirs was oral history. So that's how he went back almost like 7 or 8 generations back.
Yes.
Just telling me like, your great grandfather even told me like we had, was it somewhere in the middle where he went to fight for the King's Rifles for Brito, So I was like, okay. So coming back, telling my kids that, they were like blown away. Like here we're talking about like, hey, you guys, you know where you come from, you can, because anyway, let me go back a little bit. They were trying to call themselves Kenyan American, not African American, and it kind of shook me a little bit because they're almost defying what. Who they are. Because when you call them African American, there's something lost in there, because it's like you don't know where. So we're just generalizing where you're coming from. But these kids they want to call themselves Kenyan American. So when I'm telling them like, hey, you go back almost like 9. We went almost. You guys are like 9, 10 generation. They were just blown away. Anyway, cut the whole story short. The kids became so Kenyan. Now all they want to do is just wear Kenyan stuff to school. Every time Adam go on chafu, they want to go back Kenya.
Okay.
So I think that's
all right. Yes, and I think that's a conversation. That was a part 2 of a conversation that we had the previous year around the same time with the Gen Zs themselves. And I think that's something that we are going to put more emphasis on next year, because we are seeing them tune in. We had, like a Gen Z calling from New York. Like
Kanyangiwa waya ni bandio.
Yes, randomly called in from New York, and we had a very good conversation with him. So that interest is there, and this space is becoming like one of those friendly spaces for them where they can come and ask questions and not feel judged, because they're now coming of age, the ones who are born here, and we're now starting to learn more about them and to get out of the assumptions that we previously had about them. So karibu sana, asante sana. Now before we go to one mic, I'm gonna go to Mika Och, who is tuned in via Zoom. Mika, karibu sana. Tell us that one episode that was most captivating for you in 2024. Mika, twende kazi.
Sifuna.
Nah,
Wacha uchokozi wewe.
Sema kadhe.
Konye was the best episode for me.
Kwenye
Because
Wanjoroge
at that
rugby.
point, that day we spoke rugby, right? We spoke rugby the way people never speak about rugby, and it opened up a lot of people who don't understand, right? Actually, me, I have several episodes that I would say. I would think Konye Hila was another episode that I really enjoyed, because Hila not only just opened. We didn't even talk. We talked rugby with Hila, but also we talked business. Things that people didn't understand on ways of if you want to invest in Kenya, or what Kenyan business communities are looking for from people outside here. So we even found out that we have a diaspora representative who I don't think anybody has ever found him. And definitely charisma. Man, whatever that young lad has done this year, I want to commend him. And charisma was, I think he was the most active celebrity in Kenya when it came to maandamano, until people told him that unachoma brand, hii kuandamana haitakusaidia in anything. But he had the biggest album release in the country. He was the second most listened to artist in Africa for the month of his album launch. I think he's showcased most of the shows in Kenya this year, and his 2025 has started by, as Omosha said, the biggest show in Kenya. And what most people don't understand about that show is that was the Burna Boy production, not something that was done by Kenyans. It was something that was done by Burna Boy's team, and they are the ones who reached out to him and called him on board. And it's not kufichua siri mingi, but there might be some music that's coming together that might be done together. Let's keep our ears open. So it's been somebody who's actually who's just been himself while he's doing his music, and it's grown. He's grown. He's definitely grown, and it's a bright future for him. So I would say, as I said, that was a show our listeners didn't listen to live, but I saw the numbers of people who went to rewatch that show. There was a higher number, but then most of them were Charisma's fans from Kenya. And that is a show I tell our audience to go and listen again and to get familiar. He, among his most listened countries, USA was actually, I think, the second. So it seems like people are listening to his music and are enjoying him, but it's definitely one person who I wouldn't mind if we brought him back in 2025 into the show.
Okay. Aya, asante sana. Mika, Charisma too. Now Mika and Omosh, they love the Charisma episode, and I agree with them. That was an episode that was slept on. He came right after two very hot episodes, Edwin Sifuna and Morara Kebaso, and at that time there was just so much emotion going on in Kenya with the politics, and there was so much anger. So I think those are the things that people were tuned into most at that particular time. But that was an amazing episode that I would recommend people go and rewatch it. And those who are tuned in, I can see Tabitha and Jerry. Please tell us which were your favorite episodes. Feel free to tell us where we fell short, where you think we could do better. This is that moment of the year when you are free to critique us. We always love critiques. We always love messages of you can improve here. So please let us know. I can see Michael Peps Wanjala is tuned in all the way from Texas. Karibu sana Peps. And let us know which episode you enjoyed this year. We're trying to figure out what episodes were your best this year, and which episodes, or rather, who do you think we should have hosted that we did not, and where can we have some improvements? I can also see Nancy Mirotsi all the way from Iowa. Please type up down there. Let us know your favorite episode and your worst episode. Like one episode where it just felt like, like I just feel like going to snooze and sleep. Papa, awa leo amenibo. Let us know so that we can provide you with a better product next time. Nancy pale anasema you're doing great. Thank you so much, Nancy. But we want to hear more. We want you to tell us which episode you liked, which one you didn't like, and where we can do better. So let me come back to the studio. Uno Mike, talk to us. Which was your favorite episode?
Well, I had several. So let me start. For me, Morara Kibaso.
Mm-hmm.
Eye-opening. Like, when this is when the rubber meets the road, when you start understanding, when it's put in bare terms, yani unafunliwa, you're just being left ndeve.
Mm-hmm.
But also putting not even providing context, like just like, okay, understand this is what happens. This is the match that has been set aside, imetengwa. This was supposed to do. This is the match that has been done.
Okay.
And then you're just seeing projects are just hobela.
Mm-hmm.
I always enjoy having entertainers and artists, because especially Kenyan, because you start you in as much as we really try to support and play and vocalize, play Kenyan music, but it's always good to hear from somebody on the other side, because we're not singers, we're not rappers, but when like Charisma comes on, Nonini comes on, you get and people who are truthful, people who like someone like Nonini has been on the battlefront trying to educate people, trying to fight for the rights, just trying to make sure that artists get their due, and of course, with Baba Rehema, and because that was a long due conversation. It was so long overdue, because we need to have those open spaces. And I remember one time I said that at some point, our kids, when they're 2, 3, 4, when they get to the teenage years,
yes,
is when now mbivu na mbichi zina happen. And it is important, because there's a point in time where we were really losing our children. Unajimanyuria, because you hear so and so, you're like, okay, what is going on? So that conversation, and then we were not really having a conversation with our kids. So Rehema opens our eyes, but prior to that, we had always known. We know that something is going on, but who can we talk to? Rehema comes on, she talks. Then we're like, okay, we've listened. The parents come on, they talk. Then we understand, okay, we need to do better. Because it's more or less of identifying where we are lacking and where we can improve on.
Absolutely.
And I think for me that is, especially with our kids, because for us, my uncle Babakaro says, like at our age right now where we are, see, pole too, we are shifting away. Our kids are the ones we are shifting away. So for our kids are the ones who are they're coming in. Are we preparing them? Are we equipping them properly to handle Mother? And also don't forget, like Jemo was saying, Mother, and also don't forget the transition of is that African American, Kenyan American.
Yeah.
That was also another very interesting concept that came up.
That is something that is huge. That still needs to be discussed.
Now with this being, a big topic for so many people and being very recent. I think we can start with it. I'm going to start with you, Ruth.
Before we go, you cannot you cannot transition.
I thought you guys were not paying attention.
No.
Yeah.
We want you to tell us.
Yeah.
The same questions you have asked us, please. Back to you, sir.
Okay. So one of my favorite episodes, and to me with episodes, because I always go to re-listen to each and every episode that we record in its entirety. And usually the experience is very different.
Yeah.
Like when I'm listening, there are some shows, which after doing, I felt like, I don't know whether we did a good job, but after now sitting back and now listening to it, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on ourselves.
Which is good.
Yeah. One of the episodes that I think was most captivating to me was during the height of the uprising, when we hosted the 3 Gen Zs in studio, Val, Roba, and Kelvin. Yeah, there was such raw emotion at that particular time with what was happening in Kenya.
Yeah.
There was, of course, the killings that had happened. Parliament had been stormed, and then we had also been having our maandamanos here. So to me, the passion that they brought in the studio and the rawness in which they talked, I think it resonated with people who listen to us in Kenya, in the sense like, wow, these people are far away, but they're so in tune with what's happening and they really care about what's happening. And we were not just talking in the studio, we were actually going out to the protests, and I thank each one of you. I think each one of you except hapa Jemo, hapo tutaongea nyuma ya tent. Everybody attended at least a protest or two, which I think was very important, because I was seeing people come with their children in the protests. For some Kenyan kids, as we're talking about Gen Zs, this was their first, baptism of fire interaction with Kenyan politics. So I think that's when they started, like people, like kids who are born here, they were constantly engaging with Kenyan news, with watching what's going on, what's happening, nanini. So I think that was one of my favorite episodes. And I think also the episode that you just talked about, Baba and Mama Rehema. I think that was also a very eye-opening episode, especially when looked at in the context of the episode we had previously with Rehema and Jide, the Gen Zs, the previous year. So that to me was quite eye-opening. So I think we're gonna go towards this conversation about the Gen Zs, because I think that's one area where that has resonated with so many people. And maybe Ruth, let me start with you before we go back to Jemo. What did you think about that episode? Was there any pickups you made? How did it compare with the episode that we did the previous year?
So I think that's when work was becoming hectic. So I think if I tuned in, I probably did comment a bit here and there, because I was working really late at that time. But I think I did encounter them at the protest at the embassy. And I was amazed by this youth. The boldness that they were calling the government out on things. I wish I had that courage. And it's not even courage. I think the boldness to I remember what's her name,
Val. Yeah.
Val at the embassy saying, I don't know who had said that. I think, is it Kimani Ichung'wah?
Kimani Ichung'wah.
Yeah. I think it said, some of these people are coming to their protests with Ubers and stuff. And Val says, and so what? So alikuja, you know, and I think
and eating KFC.
And eating KFC. So kuna nini? By the way, I still remember how she said kuna nini. They're showing up to need for their rights. Like they want to be heard. And I am still amazed at how bold these kids were, and courageous. I remember talking to the Secret Service personnel who were basically protecting us, or like making sure that both
Yeah.
sides, they said both sides adhere to that there's freedom of speech in America. And he was saying, this is why we're here. We want you guys to be able to speak your truth, and the government, which is the embassy, will not do anything to you, but also we want to make sure you guys don't vandalize the embassy. So like they're there to protect us. But like I was absolutely amazed by this. Can I also say, I have a friend who brought his 2 daughters from North Carolina for the IMF protest.
Okay.
I think there was just so much around that, and the young people being part of it. Because for him, it was like, I want my daughters to be part of this. They're Gen Z. They're in high school. And talking to them, they're not fully conversant with what was happening, but they knew something was happening in Kenya that they need to protest, and that's all they needed to know. And they asked their dad to come. We want to go to the IMF. 8 hours
Driving.
driving.
So they were not from Raleigh. They were from 8 hours, because that's maybe Charlotte.
Past Charlotte.
Oh wow, that was quite a drive.
Yeah.
That was quite a drive.
But he wanted his kids to be part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So quite interesting. You know, like it was quite an interesting year. You know, like especially seeing those kids who are now, Kenya was in the global news, and these kids who were born here were very interested in what was happening. Let me come to you, Jemo. You know, like same on this Gen Z issue. And your household. What was happening in your household at this particular? What were your kids, for example, asking you? And what are some of the issues that you feel that you started resonating with that you may not have known before?
So mainly it was, okay, just disclaimer, my kids are not that old yet to grasp well, like, you know, everything that was happening, you know, at the IMF and at the embassy and everything. But I was just kind of keeping them updated, right? But for me personally, what makes me paranoid is the fact that I'm thinking that I'm failing equipping them. You know, like, I do tell them everything about Kenya. You know, they are in Kenya right now. But, you know, I feel like I'm not equipping them well for what's to come. Now, I say that because, you know, sometimes as parents, we kind of fail somewhere. You know, we think we are way up and above, you know, everything else. And I remember I was reading a quote where this dude was being asked, like, you know, what's going on? Like, you know, when they become older parents, what is there anything that kind of makes them different? And this dude was like, no, we are just, especially for men, he was just like, we are just boys who grow tall, you know? So how am I helping out my kids to be, you know, to be able to absorb what's coming for them? It's just trying to make them understand how that whole Kenyan American thing is super important to them, even though they do not live in Kenya right now, but just knowing that, hey, this is where you come from. Like, you know where your great grandparents come from. So once you know that, once you have that identity, nobody can ever define who you are, you know, because people get lost. You know, people can define once they're like, oh yeah, okay. So having them just understand the fact that, hey, apart from everything else, don't let anybody else tell you anything. Just you tell them you are Kenyan, just born in American. You know, you're an American, but you know, you have Kenyan roots.
Big shout out to Caleb, Max, Emilia.
Yeah.
Because you know they'll be watching this.
Now,
eventually.
Now, on that, you know, like still sticking onto that issue of kids who are brought up here. One of the things that you know, like took me by surprise, and I think as parents, people need to start paying attention, was the difference sometimes to what the parents think and to what the kids are actually expecting or want. I'll say going back to the interview we did with Rehema and Jide a year before we hosted the parents, I was shocked to find out that they actually wanted to learn their languages, because it was my assumption that because they've grown up here and everyone is speaking English, to them trying to teach them their language is a nuisance. And I that caught me, that caught me a bit aback, because they say they wish they had more training in their respective languages from when they were very young, like how they see Spanish kids, Korean kids, and so many other cultures do it. But then you saw now when we came back and we interviewed the parents, Mike will remember Rehema's mom said that, especially like Swahili was just not a priority in her household. So I think, the minds are sometimes very distant. You have some parents who want to teach their kids, but they're thinking, we are burdening them. Then there are those ones who are like, I don't care about teaching them, but the kids, most of the ones who have interacted with so far, actually have some interest in wanting to know their language, in wanting to know where they come from.
The issue is that, and again, this is because they were young parents, and we were right there with them. We did not know any better. So when Kenya is born, Rehema follows. It's one of those, you're like, tunajaribu kuwasengenya. We don't want them to hear what we are saying. Whether you're, let's say, castigating something, or you don't want them to watch something, or what you want to have grown folk talk or whatever. Unbeknownst to us, the fact that we are speaking that, but we are allowing them to, because we are allowing them to talk, let's say in Kikuyu, we are shortchanging them. We want them to be Kenyan. We want them to be, let's say, Kikuyu. But we are not doing...
We're not doing,
Kikuyu
we're not doing
things.
the minimums.
We're not doing the minimums.
Yeah.
We are
required.
But we want them to learn Kikuyu.
Yes.
But when we want to talk about them, we talk in Kikuyu.
And then when they attempt, we laugh at them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was brought up by the Moiko lady. What's her name? No, it was...
No, Rehema. I think Rehema is the one.
Was it Rehema?
Rehema is the one who brought that up. Yeah.
So then we laugh at them. So for me, that was an eye-opener. Like, wow, I need to do better.
Yeah.
And I think that being the challenge, now you learn. And and that was why it was important for Rehema and for Gofu and Geda to be here, because amongst us, we're talking about us. Maybe there are people and communities and people and families pengine, but us, we're talking about us because we are talking about something that we are experiencing.
Right.
We are living amongst us, not hearsay from somebody else.
Right.
But this is us here now. We are dealing with Rehema. We are dealing with Isaac. We're dealing with Caleb. We're dealing with Maxwell, Amelia, Andrew, Gracie. Those are and ever since that interview, I've been seeing my nieces and nephews from a different perspective, from a different lens.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Akina Jason, Akina Tyrell. I'm like, I think we need to avail ourselves more as uncles.
Yes.
Right? To our nieces and nephews, but also our children, our sons and daughters, and and also encourage, our boys, their uncles, to avail themselves, because trust me, there are certain things that our kids are not going to tell us as parents, but they will come and talk to Ali.
Yes.
Or they'll come and
Right.
My daughter was talking to this guy about stocks and whatever.
We're having some very deep conversations. Yeah.
So I think that is also, and that is why this camaraderie sometimes that we get together.
Right.
We should encourage it, but we should also encourage it amongst our kids. And knowing what we know now, we should fester so that they get to learn, know, and for future reference for them, they'll be like moving forward, because now you start something with them, because even when they get their own tribe, they start doing things. They're like, I remember we went to Uncle Ali's and he did this. We went to Uncle Jemo's, we did this. We went to Uncle Moshe's, we did this.
Yeah.
Let me incorporate that into my DNA moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, and it's those small things that they pick up, from these interactions. A combination of those is what gives them ability to create that identity. And I have a comment here from Wairimu N, who's been tuned in up at YouTube for a while. Alikuwa nasema, hello my people, I think I found you all around the time that you did that finance show, retirement planning, etc. That's my area. I loved it, and I think our people really need more of that. Thank you so much, Wairimu. Wairimu says, when you know your identity, no one can ever define you. I love it. Yeah, so Wairimu also tell us, we're trying to find out from our listeners, which was your favorite episode? Where did you feel like we fell short? Who should we have hosted that we didn't? And who do you want us to host in 2025? Jimbo, you were saying something.
Now, okay, this is my opinion, and I could be very, very wrong, right? So even like, you know, there are things that we have, I think, let me speak for myself. I think there's some implicit bias when it comes to our language, right? Especially now that we have kids in a predominantly English-speaking country. So growing up, when you the measure of how well and how can I say
the measure of your intellect or culture,
yes,
was based on how you spoke English.
You speak English.
Yeah.
Me, I remember I went to Resco's primary school where you'd go, if you know, it would be like we had a bone, big bone with like a string. You know, if you speak Swahili, you put it on.
So I didn't know that was there in city schools too.
Oh yeah.
So hiyo ndio ilikuwa disc.
Hiyo ndio ilikuwa punishment.
Yeah.
So you wear a keyboard.
That was very terrible.
You know? Yeah. So I think that kind of built this implicit bias when it comes to our own language, right? So
Mika.
Sorry, I wanted to add on what Jemo is saying, because it's quite true. Because if you go to Kenya right now, kids don't speak Swahili.
Yeah.
They speak English.
That's
like,
true.
Even my
Yes.
nephew and nieces, I usually speak to them in Swahili. No, I usually tell them, hey, you're outside in the estates, kids are playing in English. Na si ati sijui ni estates za ubabini. Hadi ukienda huko my Islands, kids are playing, speaking English. Like people are speaking English. It's like our generations have raised our kids to just speak English.
Right.
Like Swahili and these other languages are not there. And our generation is that generation whereby not all of us are fluent in our mother tongues.
Yep.
So it's hurting our kids down because we can't even speak to them. We can't teach them. Somebody like me, I learned how to speak Luya in high school. Singeenda boarding Kakamega High, singeongea Kiluya vizuri. Because I spoke English and Swahili at home. And I was spoken Luya too, but I used to respond in Swahili and English, and my parents were okay with that. But then when I went to high school is when I started interacting with other people, and I learned it. But I'm not that fluent. Now for my kid, anajua words kadhaa, but the good thing is, right before my grandma passed, she spent a lot of time with her and my nephews and nieces, and she taught them. And she taught them a lot about Luya and where they come, their cultures and everything. And as when Mike spoke earlier, I was quite surprised, like, this kid is interested in knowing more about this. She even knows more about our culture than me. Because she spent a lot of time with my grandmother right before my grandmother passed away. So it comes to a point whereby we assume just because we were raised in a situation whereby Swahili and mother tongue was shunned upon, that our kids don't want to know where they're from. But in reality, is like, yes, they know they're Americans. We were born from America. But I see my dad going to Kenya every December. I'm taken into Kenya every other year. I come from somewhere. I want to learn more about that.
Right.
And this generation is a generation that has taken into learning a lot of things online. Even if you look at American kids, they know their history more now. They know the atrocities that happen in this country because they've gone to search for it themselves.
Right. Yeah, because, you know, just finishing up, I'm like, even now, and then when it comes to me trying to teach them Swahili, my wife has Duolingo. She's been doing Duolingo for 900 days Swahili, learning Swahili, right? And she's like, hey, why don't you teach this dude Swahili? I'm like, yeah. But who are they going to speak to? Who are they going to talk to?
No.
You know?
This
triggering homeboy.
No. This is
I'm triggered too.
No. This is one of those. There's an African American friend of mine who was asking me sometime this week that, oh, she's learning Kiswahili. So she's telling me that I know this family where, one of the parents is Tanzanian, and one of the parents is an American, is a black American. And it's like they don't even speak, Kiswahili to their kids. So she was very surprised at why they're not doing that. I told her, you're talking about, that's a couple, that's a mixed couple.
Yeah.
Me, I'm talking of couples like either Kenyan, or even Tanzanian.
Yeah.
And they're not totally not speaking to their kids in that language. I think that's something that that is problematic. In one sense, in the sense that these kids actually want to learn. There's an assumption that the kids don't care about it, which I think has been debunked right now.
Right.
It's not there. And then teaching is not an easy thing, especially after the kids are already growing and they're used to speaking to you in a certain language. You can't just start enforcing it overnight. I always tell people, the people who I'm helping them help their kids learn the language, the best time to start speaking to your child in Swa is when they're 1 day old. Like when you're playing with a child, just start from there. Let those fast sounds,
right,
because your child is gonna know English. I know there's that insecurity of English and then there's that traumatic experience that people come with of, I want now my child to speak the perfect English so that he'll become the perfect citizen in society. No, but this intent has to be there. Usually when parents approach me on this issue, I usually try to gauge them. Number one, does the parent want the child to know the language? Because that's a very basic question. But there are some parents who actually do not want their kids to learn the language. Believe it or not, there are parents who don't want.
I can
Yes,
see that.
there are parents who don't want. So the parent first has to want. That's usually the first. That in itself gets them closer. Now the other question I always ask: what's the predominant language that's used in your household between you and your spouse? I mean, of course, if you're a mixed couple, different countries, of course, that already you're not going to be speaking Swa to each other. But if you're both Kenyans, that's the next question I'm going to ask. Now, if the predominant language that you speak is Swa, then that gets the child even closer. Yeah. But it doesn't get the child there yet. Then the language that you communicate to with the child, when you start from that beginning, even before the child starts speaking, usingoja tibaka anze kuongea. Start right from before the child starts, when you're playing with the child, and trust me, it is gonna come so smoothly, so easily. You won't even know. You won't even have to get apps and I don't know, books. Because that is intimidating to a lot of parents, and they feel like they don't wanna do that.